with what was then R.J. Reynolds Tobacco, based in Woking, running or working in the sponsorships and special events division of RJR Nabisco, this huge American corporation which had a number and still has a number of brands, Camel being one of them. And at the time, it was when tobacco sponsorship in motor racing was at its height. We had 2 Formula One teams with Williams and Benetton, so the drivers were the likes of Nigel Mansell, Schumacher, Martin Brundle, Mark Blundell and so forth. So it was a really fun time to be in motor racing. We were sponsoring a whole rally raid series, and Camel sponsored Citroën and Peugeot at the time. And then we had the Camel Trophy, and the Camel Trophy obviously had been running since 1980, and I think virtually all of you here in this room probably, I know, are Camel Trophy aficionados and probably know more about it than I do. But so I started there midway through the programme in 1990, and then was there through very good fortune, and I'd still be there now if the EU anti-tobacco legislation in 2004 hadn't kicked in, but by 2000 the writing was on the wall. So the whole thing came to a grinding halt, as I think you know, and I ended up acquiring or hanging on to and acquiring a lot of the Camel Trophy bits and pieces, including the trophies. And the trophies, of which there are 5, 2 originals and then 3 which came along later, which were a char, and you'll see a beautiful, ornately made solid silver trophies made by a silversmith called Anthony Elson in London, in Clerkenwell. And I've recently taken them back up to get them cleaned up in order to, I think, it's an honour to actually finally put them in a museum. I've been very selfish over the last however many years it is, 24 years, and had them sitting on my mantelpiece at home. And my wife said to me, "Come on, we're downsizing now. We're not getting any younger, and your trophies not only take up a lot of space, but I've had enough of looking at them." So I thought, what better place than to put them on loan here with Philip and Gary here at Dunsfold. So without further ado, let's wait this.
But if I can just say thank you ever so much. We're honoured to have it here, and of course with the guidance of Nick and Bob, Chris, and we're delighted to have them here. I hope you enjoy the display. We've enjoyed putting it together with a team of volunteers here. It's going to be here for as long as we can keep it, hopefully forever. When we do the reveal, obviously there's a lot of you up here at the moment. Don't all stay up here, move down and come back up, because it's quite friendly, isn't it, at the moment? So
I'll just, once we've revealed, I'll just talk through what they are,
yeah,
so as you know what we're looking at.
Please do. Right, let's see if this works. Okay, ready when you are. Pull your in, please, sir.
So in 1980, when the event started, it was, as I said earlier, an out-and-out tobacco promotion. The logo at that time, and there's all sorts of confusion about what logo, which is the correct logo, and which logos were used when. But at the start in the early 80s, the camel logo, the actual beast itself, if there is, the animal, this thing here on the left, was obviously the main tobacco logo, and if you, in some countries you can still buy a packet of fags and it's got a camel beast on it. But so that was bronze. It was the main Camel Trophy in during the 80s. There was a little bit of change here and there, but by and large that one was the main Camel Trophy for winning the event. And then this big huge lump of brass here, which weighs a ton, was the Team Spirit Award. And the Team Spirit Award, as the name suggests, is a trophy that was given out and voted upon by the teams themselves for the team which has shown the most amount of team spirit during the 3 or 4 weeks of the event. So on each event you'd probably have up to say 20 international teams, and it was the one to win. If you weren't going to win the overall event and you weren't going to win that, the next one was the Team Spirit Award. So these two were during the 80s, and then in the tail end of 1990, we thought, right, it's time to move on. The event was no longer positioned as a direct tobacco promotion. It had been shifted sideways into a sister company called Worldwide Brands Incorporated, which basically had a whole range of apparel, from watches through to boots, bags, and so forth, both Camel and Camel Trophy. And so the Camel Trophy side of things very much came to the fore, and the logo shifted originally from blue through to black and then to green, and it was an evolution, I suppose, in terms of the logo, just subtle changes, and it was to try and move the events away from tobacco slightly without going too far, and it was all about what was called trademark diversification. You take a well-known logo, you put it on a different product, and it helps sell it because of the logo itself. And a lot of companies were doing it at the time throughout the 80s. Dunhill did it hugely successful. Now don't even sell cigarettes, they sell suits, and have done for several decades. Yves Saint Laurent, for instance, funnily enough, went the other direction, and they actually created a cigarette. So it was a weird old time and things were happening. But anyway, so the idea being to protect the brand, because tobacco sponsorship, even at that time in the early 90s, was becoming a little bit shaky. So we thought, right, let's put it under WVI. So at that time, to move away from the Camel beast itself, the first trophy we made at the end of 91 was the silver Discovery here, which not even Land Rover had anything as ornate as that. That's solid silver. And that began life as the main Camel Trophy Award just for that 1 year in 91. And 92, we thought, let's try and come up with something that represents teamwork as well as the vehicle, which obviously, as you can see, was Discovery, regional Discovery. And hence this one here, you can see the main Camel Trophy. It's 3 arms linking together to signify teamwork, teams working together, through all the mud and everything else to achieve a common goal. So to get from one end of the route to the other. So that was very much the whole concept of trophy. Obviously the globe working in different parts of the world, wherever it may be, and the front end of the Discovery coming out of that. At the same time, we thought, let's look at team spirit. How can we better depict that? So rather than this lump of brass behind me, this one here, we thought, let's have some figurines. Let's have a tripod, let's have a bit of activity to demonstrate teams work together. And 3 of us, I'm the one standing up there, holding with his arm up in the air, but there were Lee Farrant and Duncan Barber were the other 2, for those of you who remember the characters. So those then came out in, as I say, in time for the 92 event, and then we had all 3 trophies. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the histories of the trophies. We also used to give out to each winning team of either of the trophies, they'd get one of these little replicas here to take home with them. I'm missing one of them, but I can't remember what happened to that. That disappeared. But and then you can also see these these plastic perspex trophies behind. As time went by, and we got into the late 90s, so the brand was evolving all the time, and in fact the brand was moving much quicker than the event itself. And at the end of the day, it was in many respects, we're very lucky Trophy actually kept going as long as it did, because it wasn't keeping up with the brand. It was this fantastically exciting event which was very dramatic, but one has to remember, at the end of the day, it was a PR and marketing exercise for Camel, and unless it was hitting the spot there and doing what the marketers saw as being achieving the brand objectives and targets, then it wasn't doing its job. And we actually, I have to tell you, stayed with it as a Land Rover event. I'm wearing my Camel hat here for way too long. So we stuck with vehicles. The brand was evolving. It was a young, cool, trendy brand. And after several years of market research during the 90s, it became evident that the event was lagging behind where the brand itself was. So, and if you look at, we got pictures, I don't know if we'll see them tonight with Nick, but we've got all sorts of pictures, concept drawings of where the event would have gone had it carried on in the 2000s. But so the mud plugging events of the early 90s and the 80s was something that, although it makes brilliant viewing and everybody in this room loves it, it actually wasn't portraying what the young people who were buying the products was saying that they wanted to see. So hence there was this gradual evolution. After the 96 event, we moved away from a mud plugging event through to a multi-sport adventure competition in Mongolia. So a completely different change of environment. You know, Kalimantan in 96, pure jungle, through and through, hard slog, tropical rainforests and all the rest of it. Mongolia at 97, completely different style of event altogether. The location, the culture was a big thing. That was something that everybody wanted to be able to touch and feel more than we'd done in the years previously. And so it was being able to see and appreciate some of the terrain and meet some of the people in the area where we were travelling through. And Mongolia, for those of you who've been there, is a fantastic place. So it was a series of sporting activities, hence the bikes, the kayaks, and everything that we put onto the vehicles at that time. So it was still involved the vehicle getting from A to B, but the aggressiveness and the extremity of the driving was nothing like as it had been the previous year. And this was where it brought us into conflict with Land Rover themselves. They're going, hey, hang on a minute, you're not testing the Land Rover vehicle enough through the type of terrain and the type of obstacles that you're getting your teams to drive through. And I'm going, there's a very good reason for that, but you don't necessarily need to know that at this stage. And at the end of the 97 event, every year I would go and present the plans for the following 2 years ahead to the board, and they would approve it or ask for modifications or whatever it was. And they loved the 97 event because it brought a completely different set of pictures from the event that we'd compared to what we'd had before. And at the end of the day, you always had to pinch yourself and remind yourself it was a PR exercise. So the likes of Jerry Hart, who's around the corner here, someone I haven't seen for years, came as an attending journalist on many occasions during the 80s and 90s on the events. And on each event, we would probably have in the region 200, 250 journalists between the start and the finish. And it was a very carefully controlled and operated system to get journalists in and out, either in the back seat of the vehicle or as attending journalists at various sort of meeting points along the route where we would stop and enable fly journalists in to see specific competitive activities. So whereas in the past, in the early 80s and the early 90s, the special tasks, as they were called, kind of happened as you went along, and it might have been at the start and the finish, but otherwise they were at various places along the route whenever it was, it lent itself for doing these things. And by the time we got to 97, there were specific meeting points where these adventure competitions happened. And so obviously we got journalists in to cover it. Where we realised was we're still not hitting the spot in terms of the brand. And the young people are actually, who are the team members on the event, but more importantly the target audience, what they actually want to see more of this. And the teams were saying, when we got the feedback from the 97 event, is we like it, but we'd like to be able to have more freedom. And so what we came up with for the 98 event, and for those of you who know your history, was in South America, started in Santiago in Chile and finished in Ushuaia in Argentina. It was the longest distance of any event. It was 5,000 miles, a hell of a long way, kilometres, sorry, so 3,500 miles. But the way that event worked, the competitive concept was like a free-ranging concept, so that there were hundreds of different competition locations, and a competition location was literally a disc on a tree or at the top of a waterfall or somewhere spectacular, top of a mountain, it's somewhere spectacular, which made it photographically attractive and worth taking a picture of. And it was like, in essence, the concept, the competitive concept was like a glorified treasure hunt. So it suddenly, and yet they had this list of competition locations, so there were 300 or 400 between Santiago and Ushuaia, and the teams could do them in any order they wanted. Each one was worth different points value based on the level of difficulty of reaching it, and they could do as many as they wanted, and the team with the most number of points at the end won. So the concept had to be simple, and to achieve it, it was quite very complex in terms of how we controlled it and marshalled it. But in actual fact, the free roaming aspect gave the teams a completely new dimension on the event compared to what they'd had before. And they operated in pairs, so with each team, we thought, hang on, if they're on their own, whereas in the past we'd all been together in one long line going from A to B, this time we thought from a safety point of view, and it was my responsibility as the event director to look after every man and woman on that event and make sure we didn't lose anybody. And I'm pleased to be able to say, in the years that we ran the event, we never lost anybody. So that was a mark to our belt and braces and our safety consciousness. We had, and that 98 event, so the team driver, the two drivers were in a Freelander with two journalists in the back seat, and then they had a support car which was driven by one of our guys who would have been an ex-event participant. So for instance, Bob Ives and his brother Joe, who won the event in '89, Bob came on many events as a support driver the following years all the way through. So it was hugely important for the safety and security, because to have these teams going everywhere, there was obviously the safety aspect of it was constantly on my mind in case we had an accident. So what better way than to have two vehicles together? So that was kind of how the 98 event worked, and the support vehicle was a Defender. So there were a few Discoveries kicking around, but they had been there from pre-scout and whatever else. And tonight I'll tell you a little bit more, rather than what you already know, about how if you want to hear it, about the whole structure of an event and how it all worked, because that's another subject. But anyway, so the 98 event was the last time we worked with Land Rover. Contrary to popular belief, I actually wrote to Land Rover and said, I'm afraid that our relationship is coming to an end, before they put out a public statement saying they'd split with us. So I'm going to clear the air on that, because I was asked this the other day. I go, hang on a minute, that's not right. They didn't fire me. I actually broke the partnership. But and it was we'd been together for a long time, but you have to remember what I've been saying about the brand. And it was the brand that dictated and provided the budget, $20 million budget every year for running this wonderful event throughout the 20 markets. And for the board to decide to spend that amount of money, it had to be in line with where the brand was going. And in fact, in the year after the 98 event, we ran a series of road shows around Europe, which once again, it was right in the capital cities. There were all sorts of activities in these road shows. There were fun activities and one or two sort of flying foxes kicking around and various off-road driving courses. But they were actually where our target audience was based, rather than just seeing it on a film. They were able to go in along and visit it. So that happened in '99, and then 2000, next step again, which was a boating event. So it was. There is a reason for that, and maybe I'll cover that off tonight. I've rabbited on enough. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. The rest of this stuff is all on